AM 1220 KDOW and Money 2.0 present The Real Estate Report with Tony Mendez and Gordon Hines. Bay Area real estate and mortgage experts with over 25 years in the business. Now, with an in-depth look at this week's local and national real estate news and what it means for you. Your hosts, Tony Mendez and Gordon Hines.
Welcome into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm Gordon Hines.
The maestro.
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh, not yet. Okay. Thanks for joining us today. You're always welcome to call the show 800-516-1220, 800-516-1220, or get your emails read on the air. That's Tony or Gordon at bayarealoansource.com. Today we're talking about mortgages and real estate, and everything in between. It's been a crazy market. It's been a crazy beginning of the year with inflation, with Ukraine, with the Fed rate hike. We have low inventory. There's plenty to talk about. Join in if you can. Again, you can call the show 800-516-1220, 800-516-1220. Wow, Gordon, we haven't seen these rates in, I want to say, almost 3 years, since 2018, almost 4 years. 4.67% on the 30-year fix, according to Freddie Mac weekly survey. The 15-year at 3.83. It seems like that's almost 2 points. That's about 2 points higher in less than a year on that interest rate. It's starting to trickle into, the refinance applications. Those are down. We have to go back almost 20 years to see this rate of application for refinances as far as the pace to really see, to catch up where we are right now. But purchases are still kind of holding steady, not affecting it yet as we go into this buying season. So it's kind of a really critical time. I think a lot of people are thinking this is that time to really try to figure out what's going on with the market. What do you make of it?
Well, today is the last day of the first quarter of 2022, March 31st. It's been a robust quarter, just mentioned earlier. A lot of things happened this quarter. More things happened this quarter than probably last year or the last three quarters combined. Raising rates, the war in Ukraine, oil prices, inflation, a lot to talk about, and the economy is actually beginning to spit out that information. As we talk on the show, rates are going up, and rates will supposedly and projected to continue to go up throughout the year. So we're at 4.67 now on the Freddie Mac average 30-year fix. Probably end up around 5.5, 5.75 by come end of year, fourth quarter. So definitely as rates go up, of course, qualifications come down because simply you need to make more money to qualify for the same loan amount simply because you're qualifying at a higher rate. So those are the things that people are concerned about. And, of course, that ties into inflation. We're paying more money for products and goods and services than we were paying a year ago. Of course, the biggest culprit is gas. Gas prices, I just put in gas this morning at $5.59, and that's an unbranded station for regular. I actually looked at the gas tax on the side posted on the pump. I think we're paying like 63 cents here in California.
Second highest in the nation.
On gas tax. And Joe Biden today announced that they're going to be using some of the oil reserves. And I think some states, I heard a state in Florida is looking to cut their gas tax in half. So in our case, let's say 60 cents, so they cut the gas tax in half here in California. That should immediately reduce our prices down by 30 cents at the pump. So these are all the things that we need to do in order to kind of prepare for this uncharacteristic part of the economy that we all didn't assume that we're going to be in here in 2022.
It's not just gas. I went to buy a quart of paint. I just needed to paint a door. And I went to a name brand place mistakenly, and they quoted me $29 for a quart of paint. So it's hitting everybody all across the board: food, gas, everything, utilities. We talked about water. Water's going up for a lot of people. And this is going to change a lot of people's minds on, hey, if I rent, the landlord has to take care of this. Yeah, okay, I might be in a, my rent might go up a little bit, but I don't have to buy a property that's too far away. Then I'm gonna have to spend money on gas. Renting might make more sense, and I think a lot of people are already feeling that way, Gordon, where renting is actually going to start making more sense to them.
Well, I was surprised. I got one of my PG&E bills. I have a few rental properties. I got one of my PG&E bills this week, and I looked at the bill. I looked at the gas. There's a breakdown between gas and electric. and it looks like the gas bill was like $200. So I called and says, hey, maybe they didn't get a chance to read the meter. Maybe it's an estimated bill. So I did call PG&E, talk to the person on the phone, the customer service rep, and she said, no, unfortunately, Mr. Hines, PG&E had a 90% increase on their gas bill to the consumers. I said, what, 90%? I said, and that was actually approved by the PUC. I can't imagine that a household can generate a 90% increase on a PG&E bill. I got a client of mine who has a laundromat. He said his PG&E bill was averaging about $6,000 a month in gas. He says it's now $9,000. That's a tremendous jump that he cannot pass on to consumers. Same thing with me. I can't pass that on to the tenants. Just a crunch. We're just being crunched on every side of the fence, and it's going to show eventually in the economy.
And we continue seeing records made on the home prices as well. Yet another record according to Realtor.com at $405,000 for the first time ever, an all-time high average nationally. That's 13% compared to last year at this time and 26.5% more than March of 2020 when COVID began. Home prices continue to rise because of housing demand outpaces housing supply, says Daniel Hale, chief economist at Realtor.com. And the way the market balances that is by pushing prices up, supply and demand. And we're going to continue seeing that. And we're going to get a little bit later into this report if I had it right in front of me. But we have builders right now who are basically saying we're going to slow down. Builder confidence is down. So we have builders, we have analysts that are looking at builders and saying, okay, if we aren't replacing that inventory, that lost inventory that we're not getting from seller or existing homes, we're looking at years, 2 to 3 years to catch up on inventory from builders, new homes, which could continue to, keep home prices elevated with just that, that formula of supply and demand, regardless of rates.
I mean, it's a cost of doing business, as we say, but it's an expensive cost to do business. When you look at, we talk lumber, we talk material costs, we talk about what it costs to do things, do it yourself, versus like you just mentioned, you went to buy a quart, not a gallon, a quart of paint for $29 a quart. Hopefully they saw you coming and change the price. I'm hoping that happened because I can't imagine a quart of paint costing $29. That's what typically a gallon of paint normally runs about $29. But you're saying a quart for $29. Must have been a special brand of paint. Not to mention that. But these are all the things that we are all faced with as consumers. No matter who we are, we're a consumer in some type of business. We might be a merchant in one business, but we're a consumer in another business. We are merchants in the mortgage business, but we are also consumers in the mortgage business, and we're also consumers in the businesses of life. That's what we do because we're part of the community.
What kind of advice would you give somebody who's been on the fence, been saving money for a house, they watch in the stock market, kind of go, take a little breather. They're seeing their incomes do okay. That's the one kind of shining moment we see in all of these factors for affordability. Incomes are doing okay. Credit scores are up. And we still have this desire to buy a home. Looking at some of these projections of continued growth in the United States, even though it's slowing down, what do you tell somebody who's been sitting on the sidelines and saying, look at these rates? What I would say is that eventually they're going to come back down and just get what you can, buy it now, and then refinance later. That's what we're kind of looking forward to in the industry. That's what we saw kind of leading up, from 2014 to 2018, and then rates dipped. We saw a lot of people who were buying and buying and buying, and then they took advantage of the lower rates. Rates go up and down all the time, and I think what you do is you afford it now, and then you find ways to keep it and then manage it later on.
Well, we always mention you put your foot in your mouth again. Rates don't go up. Rates pretty much stay the same. The cost of the rates go up and down all the time. But as we're talking to consumers, you asked me what advice I'm giving. I had three different people call me today and asking me about what my professional opinion was as far as buying a house. I said, well, listen, the 30-year fix has gone up. Maybe you might want to look at an ARM, look at a 5-1 ARM, a 7-1 ARM. You can still get those in the 3% range. You're good for 5 years as long as you can qualify with the cost of the plan plus the index and the margin to equal out your rate. You're good. If you can keep that for 5 years, average person stays in the loan about 6 years. You can get a 5-1 ARM in the threes, mid threes. I think that's still a good deal. That doesn't necessarily blow you out the water because everybody else is thinking negative because the 30-year fix has gone up. We just moved to different products, and as we're seeing in our business right now, a lot of new products that come in the market to help to absorb some of the shock of some of the volume that we've lost through rates going up through the standard 30-year fixed refinance market.
Yeah, and if you follow your philosophy of how the Fed needs to build in some cushion here, and so they can bring rates back down at some point, we have to do it. Inflation's a perfect time to do it. So if you look at that timing, and you do get an arm, let's say it's a 5-year arm or 7 or 10, that's could be long enough for us to write out some sort of higher interest rate environment, and then watch rates come back down, and then you refinance into a 30-year fixed, or get another arm that's lower than the 30-year fixed anyway. What we're going to, and that's another strategy. I did a whole video on that. You can go to YouTube. It's Bay Area Loan Source. Bay Area Loan Source. Just search for that at YouTube. And there's a couple videos. But if you get an arm now, and then rates are higher later, and you're like, oh, that mortgage guy, he told me I could get a 30-year fixed later. It's going to be lower. You can just get another arm. You're not borrowing any more than you would if you got a 30-year fix. You're just managing your payment along the way. Meanwhile, that first 5 years, in this case, on a 5-year arm, you saved money along the way. I remember one of the first things you told me when I got in the business. I met you 17 years ago. I asked you what kind of loans you have on your property. You said, oh, I have a couple arms on my properties, and they're working great. And then I think maybe a year ago, I asked you again. You go, oh, yeah, they're still working great for me. So a lot of people, because you got another one in one of them, and another one you didn't, they just worked. We're not pushing arms. What we're pushing is that an arm can be an option in a higher rate environment. Yet, the other day I saw an article from, I wish I could remember the guy's name, but he's pushing one of those financial gurus who, that claims he's a financial guru, saying that everybody should be looking at the 20 or the 15 year. Well, if everybody could do the 20 or the 15, we would see home prices fall because you have a shorter period, you have higher payments. 87% of people in 2021 used a loan to purchase a house. And if you had 87% of the purchases last year that got loans have to use a shorter term with higher payments, you wouldn't have seen as many people qualify. So that doesn't make sense. The 5-year arm is amortized for 30 years. You just have a fixed rate for that 5-year period. And for some people, that makes sense on an affordability level, and it gives them 5 years to figure out what they're going to do. There's no shortage of professionals in the business, mortgage officers, loan officers, that are there to help you, advise you on this. We're one of them. You can always reach out to us and get some advice on this. Did you have last comment on that?
Well, as time goes, time changes, we have to change. I think that's part of the business. The people that change, the people that adopt, the people that go through the process of requalifying themselves, recertifying themselves, always make better decisions based upon the sign of the times.
We'll come back after this break. I'm Tony Mendez. That's Gordon Hines. You can always reach the show, 800-516-1220, 800-516-1220, or you can email us, Tony or Gordon, at bayarealoansource.com. We'll be right back after this break.
Questions about real estate? Call the program, 800-516-1220. Now, back to the Real Estate Report on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm the maestro, Gordon Hines.
The maestro. My nickname was T-Bone.
T-Bone. Wow.
How
original.
Oh, I know. You never know how you earn that a nickname.
You must have wrecked a lot of cars.
The 30-year fixed at 4.67. We just talked a little bit last segment about, well, actually the whole segment about interest rates and how we kind of perceive how it's affecting, the average buyer, the average person refinancing. Yeah, it is. I mean, we have inflation, and on top of that, people are looking to save a little bit. Oh, okay, we have inflation. Gas is going to be $6 a gallon. Maybe I'll refinance. Oh, rates went up. We don't have that option anymore. Will I get an arm? Oh, I got to refinance in 5 years or 7 years. I don't want to do that. We're in that time. We needed rates to go one direction or the other, right, Gordon? We needed them to move. They were, since we were at the all-time lows, they were going to go up. Everyone knew they were going up. Now everybody's like, oh, they went up. Maybe that's just me.
Well, I got a call from a client. He said he got a loan from World Savings, who's no longer around, I think. Wachovia ended up buying them. I think Wells Fargo was the end user at the time. And he was bragging. And he says, look, I've got this loan in 2000, and this arm has operated in the high twos, between 2.5 and 2.875 for the last 20 years. And I said, well, you got to remember, for the last 10 years, we've had a market hasn't gone up. So you didn't see those inflections come into the arm business like you would. Now you're going to see that arm go up because the cost of money has gone up. But for the most part, the Feds have kept have kept their hands out of raising rates, I think, for the last 7 years, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So the products reflect what the Fed's doing, and it reflects in the marketplace. So now that rates are beginning to go up, we got to now move out of that 30-year fix into the shorter-term arms, the intermediate arms we call, in order to keep the low rates. And I think those are well. The worst thing is when a customer calls and asks for advice, and then they don't want to adhere to what you tell them. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So then what do you want? Why are you asking for advice? That's the qualifying question I always ask myself.
Well, people certainly want options, right, Gordon? They want to know that this arm work, but there's a lot fewer options today when it comes to what I can do to get my payment lower. We used to have, pay option arms and teaser rates and interest only. We have interest only, but it doesn't really make sense because the rate's so much higher. The interest only payment's almost what it would be if you just did a principal and interest loan. So there's not as many options. So people are left with really a fixed loan or an arm. And if you can follow that philosophy of when rates go up, you try to use arms to manage your payment. When rates are lower, you get the fixed. No, a lot of people got a fixed mortgage, and then they don't at low interest rates, but sub 3 in many cases. Why would they ever refinance? Well, there's plenty of reasons to refinance, and that's where people are starting to figure out that it's going to cost a little bit more nowadays. The equity line was the option. Now equity lines, which are tied to prime, which we are going to see prime go up along with the Fed's fund rate, and that's no longer going to be an option. And it's going to continue to be either the 30-year fixed or it's going to be an ARM product that's going to continue giving people the lower payment option. I think you look at all the options. I think a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to increase my rate, but I've been in my loan for 7 years. Well, if you reamortize and you possibly take some cash out, reamortize 30 years, take some cash out, you might actually end up, and the rate's higher, you might actually end up with the same payment and getting cash out because you're reamortizing. So it's not just, do you need the money? How bad do you need the money? If you're just going to use it for a couple vacations, and probably not the wisest decision, or maybe just get an equity line and pay it off in a year. But if you are on a budget and you're worried about inflation, you're worried about job security, and you want to stretch out those payments, that could be the option. So I think there are other options that people can look at. Reamortizing. I think that we're going to see fewer people do shorter terms like the 10, 15, and the 20. But that is another way to get a lower rate. What are your thoughts on that in this kind of market?
Well, I think what we'll begin to see is one of the old sales techniques. When I was in sales, we used to always talk about features and benefits. What is the feature and what's the benefit? A client called me this week, matter of fact. He said he was looking to refinance. He was talking to one Rocket Mortgage on the phone, and they were taking him from 4.5 down to 4.125. He was going to save $200, but he's in his loan 18 years. So I said, if you're not really taking cash out, what is the real benefit of refinancing? You're going to add another 12 years back onto a payment schedule, where in another 12 years you're probably technically paid for. You're 56 years old. So what's the benefit? Now, so if you're going to take cash out, I can see the benefit, but just trying to reamortize and start all over doesn't make a whole lot of sense. One of the things that we're going to start to see, where we're going to see it now resurface, is a 40-year term become popular. As a 40-year term comes in, now you add another 10 years onto that payment plan, which now hence reduces that monthly outcome. We all measure ourselves by monthly outcome. We don't measure ourselves by how much you owe. And those are the features and the benefits of what you will do when you're looking for an options in this kind of a market that we're in. That fair enough?
I might disagree with that a little bit. I think there are some people who are measuring it by what rate they got. There's a lot of people who got below 2.5% that are just jumping up and down, watching these rates go up and saying, I'll lock that in. It's when they need that money back. They need to go back and get that money, like your 55-year-old client who is going, I'm going to end up in the 4s. What's going to give me the lowest payment option? What's my short-term and long-term goals? Should I take cash out? I think a lot of people Gordon, you say this all the time. It's still the cheapest money you can get.
Well, exactly. So if you have a 2.5% 30-year fix and you need $40,000 in emergency, where else are you going to get cheaper money than in your house? And it makes sense regardless of what the cost is. Once again, you have to come back and look at the benefit. Is the benefit the higher rate? You're going to benefit from the higher rate simply because to give you enough cash to take care of your cash emergency? Then, of course, it's worth it. So the fact that you're at 2.5 and starving on the line makes no sense to me. So there we have it. You look at the feature and how do you benefit from what this feature is going to deliver, and that's how you make your decision.
We just got some more. We get phone calls all the time about from lenders looking to promote some new product or just gain our business. One of the new products we're seeing is not new products, but something we're seeing hitting back into the broker market and the wholesale market are second loans. Standalone second. A standalone second is basically an equity line. You have a first loan. You don't have to touch it. You can get an equity line. So we're going to start bringing those back on because I think we're going to see more people go, you know what? I need 40 grand. I have 2.875 on my 30-year fixed. I don't want to touch it. I'm going to get an equity line. Yes, my rate's going to be 5-6%, whatever it's going to end up being. But I'm only exposing 40 or 50 grand to that. Maybe if it's 100 grand or 200 grand. But I plan on paying that off sooner. I think we might see equity lines hit the market a little bit stronger than we saw back leading up to 2018 and 19 when we saw a lot of people that had that 10-year period where it starts recasting. That was a big period, 2018, 2019. We saw a lot of people get out of equity lines. I think we're going to start seeing people get back into them, even though we see the rates going up.
Well, the challenge with equity lines is like the law of supply and demand. There are not a lot of suppliers on equity lines. Only the big box house chains offer them, so it's not a big benefit right now. And they're very strict on the qualifying requirements for those loans. Now, one of the things I thought you were alluding to was fixed rate seconds rather than equity lines. Fixed rate seconds are true mortgage loans where equity lines are not. So those are one of the things we'll talk about when we come back. Fixed rate seconds versus an equity line.
Certainly enough to talk about in this challenging market. We still have a lot more content for you. Home prices, like we said, reached new highs. Pending home sales declined for the fourth consecutive month. Housing market updates, surging mortgage rates and home price puts more buyers on the sidelines. We have much more to talk about here on AM 1220 KDOW. This is the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez. That's Gordon Hines here on AM 1220 KDOW. We'll be right back.
Phone lines are open on the Real Estate Report. 800-516-1220. That's 800-516-1220.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm the maestro, Gordon Hines.
Home prices heat up to start the year off in Arizona and Florida, leading the S&P Case-Shiller report on their 10-city and their 20-city composite. Look at this. Phoenix, Tampa, Florida, and Miami saw the biggest annual gains. 32%, 30%, and 28%, respectively. That's just incredible numbers. And what's funny is that these are places where there's a lot of condos. And pull up another report. Condo prices jumped to record highs as buyers seek relative affordability. Everyone's looking for something affordable. If I was to say, and we have a lot of people that ask this, what are home prices going to do? I think here in the Bay Area, you can break that down into two categories. One, affordable homes, and two, not affordable homes, period. I think the affordable homes are going to continue to do very well, Gordon. Anything below, and we did this taking a median income here in the Bay Area with 20% down is about $1.2 million. So anything below 1.2, I think is going to continue doing well. Anything over 1.2, and let's just push it to 1.3 depending on what county you're in, I believe will not do as well, but will continue to thrive. When I mean not do as well, we're talking percentages, small percentages between year-over-year growth. I don't think they're going to go negative. I think they're just going to slow down, even at the higher rates. And the lower end will continue to thrive, no matter what happens with interest rates and inventory, while the higher end, over 1.2, 1.3, is going to continue to see modest growth, maybe and slow, depending on what happens with inventory. I think it's going to be much more sensitive to inventory.
I kind of see it a little bit different. I see what I'm looking at right now. A lot of people are talking about the cost of property taxes. Property taxes are extremely high in a lot of these counties. I think Oakland, for example, just added a vacancy bill on their property taxes. They have a homeless bill on their property taxes. All these things now are property taxes now, which the standard that we use to calculate property taxes is 1.25% of the purchase price. But if you look and go to the actual tax bill for a lot of these counties, a lot more than 1.25%. I think these all factor into the higher cost of home ownership. And I think eventually we're going to see days on the market increase, the market will start to fizzle because as rates continue to go up. Right now, as we talk on the show all the time, our projections are based on last month because our business is based on what we did 30 days ago. But as time now moves forward with these higher rates creeping in, we start to see the issues with the cost of ownership, insurances, home insurances you can't get. All these are going to factor in the cost. We will see the housing market begin to shift sometime late in the year.
I'm not going to define shift for you, but I'll give you my own opinion. I believe shift means we're going to see a slowdown in year-over-year growth. I do think we're going to continue in the lower end, the affordable range is what I would call it. I think we're going to continue seeing double-digit growth, even with higher interest rates, just because of inventory. Higher end is going to be a little bit more sensitive. We'll come back after this break. I'm Tony Mendez. That's Gordon Hines. It's the Real Estate Report. You can always reach us at 800-516-1220, or you can email us, Tony or Gordon, at BayAreaLoanSource.com. That's Tony or Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com. That's also our Facebook and YouTube. It's Bay Area Loan Source. We'll come back after this break here on AM 1220 KDOW.
Got a question? Run it past these guys. 800-516-1220. It's the Real Estate Report with Tony Mendez and Gordon Hines on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm Gordon Hines.
You're always welcome to call the show. Get your questions on the air. 800-516-1220. 800-516-1220. Well, home prices continue to rise. A lot of people want to know. I think they're going to continue to rise, just not as quickly. Several weeks ago, we talked about what happens to home price year-over-year growth after a spike in interest rates. What we saw is it slow down year-over-year growth, but never go negative in the last 10 years. So, Gordon, do you feel the same about this rate change as quickly as it's come about?
Well, I think, once again, I think this is the last 2 or 3 years you have to take these off the chart. It's hard to use these because of COVID. We had something drastic that affected not only the California market, the United States market, the world economy has all been affected by this. It's just something that affects every household from here to Timbuktu. So as we look at these things now, I think we have to factor all these things into a worldwide economy. As we talk inflation, we're looking at wars, we're looking at COVID, we're looking at money supply, we're looking at germ warfare. There's so many issues out there that's affecting the world that all, at the end of the day, factors into an economic projection or economic downturn, whichever way you want to call it. The United States economy is flying high now, but once again, we don't operate in a vacuum. All the other world economies come into it. We borrow money. We owe China billions of dollars. All these people owe. Russia has the control of the oil. We talk about the gas prices with PG&E. We talk about inflation. We talk about the cost of driving a car. We talk about the cost of electric car. Electric cars are becoming a big factor. But when you look at the cost of an electric car, you have to factor in how long you have to keep that car
before it makes sense
to
offset
the cost of gas. And most people don't look at it that way. You go out and buy an electric car. I think GM has that new Silverado coming. I'm talking about $110,000 for an electric truck. $110,000.
Well, you're doing your part, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane, but, I guess a solar truck's coming soon. And there are a lot of different things coming in the marketplace, but you got to also look at the costs. What is the cost? And once again, going back to my earlier conversation, does the benefit outweigh the feature? And that's how you have to look at it.
What if I threw in this factor here? This comes from Daniel Hale, and we're talking about the continuation of the growth of home prices. Daniel Hale, she's the chief economist at Realtor.com. Home prices continue to rise because housing demand outpaces housing supply. We already know housing, supply and demand. With home buyers losing the will to forge ahead in this kind of market, does that mean that home prices might finally be near a point where they start trending downward? She says, as for where home prices may go from here, that depends on several factors. First, even though construction, and this is the point I want to make, even though construction is starting to catch up, we have a huge 5.8 million home deficit to build out of. For context, that would be 5+ years of construction at the current pace. So that's a long-term issue. In other words, the sluggish pace of new construction might continue to keep home prices high. Plus, home buyers are benefiting from the hot job market. They might see, some wage increases, will continue to kind of throw their hand into that mix and say, you know what, I still want to buy houses. And they're continually, those are the buyers that are continually fueling their own market, so to speak.
Well, but
so does that change your opinion and maybe sharpen it a little bit?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, the millenniums, they have money. They want to buy. But hey, if you look back and go back to a calendar you just mentioned, it might be more beneficial to rent. When we look at the cost of services, things that the landlords cannot pass on to you, especially with the dreaded rent control markets, you might be better off renting than buying. So because they eventually want to own, but given the circumstances, owning right now might not be the best deal under the circumstances as compared to renting.
Some of the cities with a growing number of inventory, some of them are here in California, Riverside and Sacramento, Kansas City, Detroit, Austin, and Phoenix. They saw an uptick in the amount of inventory, but they were only 6 out of the 50 that had actually smaller numbers of the large metropolitan areas. So inventory, I think, will continue to, overrule the majority here. I think we're going to continue seeing home prices. They're going to slow down. They're going to continue going up. I think affordable markets, affordable neighborhoods, affordable prices are going to continue to rise, especially in places that, the Bay Area. A lot of neighborhoods probably are welcoming, the home prices. You're seeing neighborhoods, across the East Bay, for example, they're seeing people coming in and renovating homes, improving neighborhoods. Yeah, okay, and they're also creating more taxes for the city, which improves, some of the other amenities around. You have a little bit more experience with this as far as how coming into some of these blighted neighborhoods can actually improve the neighborhoods as you see home prices rise. What's the negative to this type of phenomenon?
Well, I think the negatives, what sometimes we unfortunately see a lot of homelessness when people get priced out of the market. They got to go somewhere. Sometimes some of these people end up going to the streets. It's not one formula solves all, but each benefit sometimes can lead to a crisis. My brother's favorite line: 6 on one hand and half a dozen on the other. Those are some of the effects that we see when we see things going well from one side of the equation. The other side, something's got to give. And a lot of times, as we see a branch of homelessness, people are now looking for handouts, people looking for subsidies, people looking to increase the cost of homeless to pay for some of this stuff. It's a challenging form for a lot of the big cities. We look at the crime statistics when we start to see people go homelessness, the quality of street life, the filthiness on the street. All these things come into play. It's a challenge for some of the cities. I think some of the cities are doing a much better job than other cities. I think especially Oakland. Oakland, in my opinion, is doing a horrible job at it, but that's just my opinion from what I see. But these are the things that, the residents have to get involved in to make these city officials accountable for the crises on the street, regardless of whose fault it is.
Well, yeah, you just mentioned how Oakland they're adding more taxes to the tax bill. Insurance premiums are going up. We're seeing a lot of
the cost of home ownership has definitely gone up. When we look at cost of insurance, taxes, mortgage rates, cost of materials, cost of utilities, all those eventually would lead to a downturn in the market, regardless of supply and demand. That is my prediction.
And you can throw into that formula of supply and demand and the lack of inventory. There's a lot of people who bought and refinanced into super low rates that don't want to ever give them up. You also have people who bought that are under Prop 13 and they don't want to sell and move somewhere else out of state and pay taxes at whatever rate that they get. Yet there's a bunch of people who say maybe this is the highest my home will ever be. It's the highest it's probably ever been. Statistically, that's the truth in 99% of America right now. Your home is worth more than it's ever been.
Isn't that what you told me about the cars?
I did. Your car. I love the commercial. Your car is worth more today than it's ever been.
Yeah, and a car unless it's push a blast.
One of those supercars.
Unless it's a
Ferrari or something.
Collectible.
A collectible. Okay. And then again, the people who buy those really don't care if it's worth that much or not. We'll come back after this break. You're welcome to get your calls on the air, 800-516-1220, 800-516-1220, or shoot us an email, Tony or Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com. That's our email. That's our website. That is our Facebook and our YouTube. We'll come back after this break here on AM 1220 KDOW.
Tony and Gordon are taking your calls at 800-516-1220. It's the Real Estate Report on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm the maestro, Gordon Hines.
Thanks for joining us today. It's a live show. You can call in 800-516-1220, 800-516-1220, or you can email the show, Tony or Gordon at bayarealoansource.com. We have a caller. It's Bobby in Redwood City. Wants to talk about his investment property. Welcome to the show, Bobby.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call, actually. Excellent show. You guys pretty much are discussing the hardest topic in U.S. right now after the war, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. We've been doing it for about 12 years now.
Right. I thought I would try to get your opinion on a slight situation which my wife and I find ourselves in. We have an investment property in Mountain House close to Tracy, and we are planning to sell it, but we seriously don't know what to do after that, whether we should be investing back in the Bay Area itself or basically invest out of state in Arizona or Texas or say Dallas. I mean, would you guys have any thoughts or opinions about that?
Okay, my first question is, any reason why you want to sell it? That's my first question.
Basically, we bought it in 2013, and it has gone up quite a bit, and we just want to lock the gains, because, we never expected this much appreciation, but the way things are, we just want to just lock in the gains, does it make sense?
Well, anytime you talk of sell, the biggest issue with selling is taxable liability. Where do you stand tax-wise? It sounds 2013 Mountain House had fallen down to the bottom, so you're probably in that thing at a very low cost basis. If you sell it now, you will see a large capital gain in your pocket. What is the capital gain going to cost you tax-wise? You need to, I recommend you talk to your accountant first to see what your taxable position is, because a lot of times when you sell an asset, you have to save or extract enough cash to pay the taxes after you had that wonderful gain. The next thing I want to look at, if you are going to reinvest that money, you could look at a 1031 exchange, or you could try to sell the property and carry the mortgage, will help kind of offset that large capital gain. If especially now in rising interest rate times, that could be a good strategy. You can talk to your realtor about that and see if that's something that can help you offset your taxable liability. Biggest thing in selling, whether it's assets, whether it's real estate stocks, it's always the taxable liability of where do we stand at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's the first thing I would do is decide if you wanted to stay in real estate. If I was to stay in real estate, I'd definitely look at a 1031 exchange. I think most people that are in real estate, and Gordon, you know this firsthand, are always looking to improve their portfolio. If you're looking to just buy another single-family house, is that something that you want to do? Why not keep it where you are right now? We don't think home prices are going to go down, yet you're probably getting, if it's investment, you're probably getting the highest rents you've ever got, since that's where the environment we're in, and you're probably cash flowing. You probably have refinanced into a low interest rate, so it's working for you. I would look at the rate of return that you're getting, and I continue looking at that. Yes, you're paying taxes on your cash flow, but you also get some deductions. And if you go and buy another piece of property, then you have the cost of selling, and then you have the cost of buying, and then the whole setup, loss of rents, and then maybe some maintenance and so on. So I had this same situation come up myself, and thanks for the call, Bobby.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And is that at some point I wanted to improve my portfolio, and then I started looking at the property, and I was like, I didn't want to. Why would I want to move it? I'm not really improving it. There's not enough in it to really move it into a better property. So why not keep it? I'm a little confused about that. I think investors right now, and probably most of the investors right now, Gordon, they're either trying to improve their situation, or they're trying to get into places like Mountain House, which at low interest rate. Gas prices are going to go up. People are going to be driving farther, but home prices are driving people out to those neighborhoods. And Mountain House has really made a comeback, including some of the other places in the valley.
Well, one of the things when we talk real estate, we talk investors. Investors are always looking at cash flow. That's the biggest. You and I were just talking about that. I just refinanced a couple of properties to improve my cash flow, because as an investor, with their heartaches and the challenges in owning real estate, there have to be some type of, going back to my term again, benefit. The feature, of course, is home ownership, but the benefit to me is cash flow. So I don't know what your particular financial situation between you and your wife, how well off you are, if you're looking for cash flow in the future, if you have an asset you want to maybe sell to a child later on down the line, bump up that cost basis on that property, give the child what we call gift equity. And there's a whole many options out there when you're in a financial position to do it. We didn't get a chance to quiz you on any of that, but these are all the things that pop into my mind. You are in the driver's seat. When you have options, you're doing very well, Bobby, and I wish you the best.
What do you think about trimming some off? I mean, he's talking about capturing the gains. What about trimming some off? Depending on how much the property value is.
Well, he could take some cash out.
He could take some cash out and then lock it in, and maybe say, oh, okay, here's my rents. Here's where I can cash flow, and maybe even break even, but I'll get $100,000, for example, and then lock in some of that equity and still have the remaining equity in the property. But somebody else is now continually paying that back. So you can borrow money, somebody else is paying for it, and you get the write-offs. And if there's losses, you get the losses write-offs as well. So owning that real estate has so many much more benefits than just sitting around in cash if it's working for you properly. I'd look at the rate of return on what you're getting now, pulling it out. I don't know what you feel about the market. I'd look at the tax benefits. There's so many things that you can do here, but short-term, long-term goals, Gordon. That's
Absolutely.
what I look at.
Absolutely. Thanks for the call, Bobby.
You can always call the show 800-516-1220, or you can shoot us an email. These are the kind of questions we get all the time, and we love them. Tony or Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com. Any last thoughts?
Well, we were talking about, we didn't get a chance to go. This is the fast hours of my life where we always talking the show. We have some things we want to talk about with his clients.
So future rate locks, a lot of people are doing long-term rate locks in anticipation of higher interest rates. You can go up to 180 days. We did one earlier in January and locked it at 4.25. Now that same price comes out at 5.5. So there are some benefits in actually doing this. And this particular person did it on a new construction. So these locks are out there if you are fearful of higher interest rates.
Absolutely. Thanks
for joining us today. Like Bobby, you can always call the show 800-516-1220. Or you can shoot us an email, Tony or Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com. That's also our Facebook and YouTube, Bay Area Loan Source. You can find some videos and some other information on Facebook. Any last comments?
Look forward to listening to you and delivering some more news next week.
That was the Maestro Gordon Hines. I'm Tony Mendez. This is the Real Estate Report here on AM 1220 KDOW. We'll see you next week.